The hard truth is that some people are or feel embarrassed to be single. What's up, fam? Welcome back to Big Picture Podcast, where we discuss faith, testimonies, and perspectives while focusing on the big picture. I am your host, Susan Obi. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to Big Picture. I hope that everyone is having an amazing week. I am back on video. I have a different setup, so I'm still kind of working with this and seeing what works and what doesn't. So trying this out this week and seeing how this feels. But it has been kind of fun just trying to figure out the video editing and the setups and the mic setups and everything like that. So we'll see how this goes. I probably will take a picture and post on the podcast Instagram story of what the setup looks like right now. It is not ideal. I have a mic standing on something and a chair beside me and everything, but everything is in the works. But anyways, thank you for listening. So for today's episode, I am going to be talking about a topic that is important. I think it is important. So the title of the episode is The Truth About Being Single. So I knew I wanted to do episodes about being single, relationships, and things like that, because I think this is just always discussed pretty much on a lot of different podcasts. And I think that it is something that I have thought about just constantly, not even recently, but just generally. I think it's something that is brought up a lot in the church, maybe not as much as it should be when talking about being single, but with that title, The Truth About Being Single, there's obviously more than one perspective, more than one truth that people have. So what I did for this episode, which this was an idea for my same friend that told me to set up a video for my podcast while I'm recording. So I'm always open to ideas. I mentioned in the last episode that one of my close friends told me that next time you record, just set up a camera and then go from there and figure it out with the video editing, but you'll never know how it feels if you don't start. So that's what I'm doing now. So with this, I actually texted a handful of friends, some single, some married, some engaged, some in relationships, and just asked the question of, if you were going to ask any question or a plethora of questions to someone who's single, what do you think are some of the things that you would think about or want to ask? Or if there's any topics that need to be discussed around being single, what are some topics that would be important? What do you think the truth is about being single? Just really anything on the subject that you want to chime in on, let me know. So I kind of combined all of those thoughts. I'm going to be reading some of them and just kind of commenting my thoughts and talking about it a little bit. I had a lot of really great responses. I texted a handful of friends privately and was just like, hey, let me know anything that you think about on this topic. So I'm going to be reading some of those. Some are just general topics that are important to discuss based on a few people's different perspectives, because obviously there's not just one truth about being single. There are plenty of truths depending on who you are, where you are, how long you've been single, and different experiences that one has had. And then there's also some questions too as well. And looking at the questions, actually most of these questions were asked by people who were not single. So I think there's really interesting and really, really good questions. And another thing I want to say before I get into it is that I know that this topic can be a topic that maybe sometimes people don't really want to talk about, or maybe don't feel as confident talking about singleness, if that's a word. And I just wanted to address that. I know that sometimes it can be difficult. It can be difficult because even in my last episode, I talked about how we are made for community, we are made for relationships, we are made for people, for being around people, for getting to know people and allowing people into our lives and our circles. And that's literally the same thing for relationships. I think that if you think back to Genesis 1 and how God created Adam, God created Eve, and created them for each other, that just shows how God wired us as human beings for each other, for relationships, not just romantic relationships, even though that was the first relationship that was established other than God and man. Then there was that romantic connection, that marriage connection between Adam and Eve. So we are made for relationships generally, relationship with God, relationships with other people. So I definitely understand how it can be maybe a difficult season or a difficult time or a difficult thing to think about when one feels like, okay, I don't feel like I have that close relationship, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that is just the way that we are wired. So I'm just going to get into reading some of these topics and just kind of comment and share my thoughts. Feel free to let me know as you're listening what you think. Feel free to text me as you're listening or send a DM or anything like that. I just really enjoy hearing people's thoughts on these topics. So there's one that says that in terms of being single, so I'll just read it verbatim. Being single is almost always not looked at as a good thing to be, and sometimes marriage or dating can be glorified a little bit too much. And I think that is true. That can be true in a sense. I think that in general, society, which I've kind of talked about on one episode, The Race Called Life, that I did with my friend Isaiah, how society kind of paints this picture of what we are supposed to do as humans as we're evolving and aging. There's certain milestones that you are supposed to hit. Going to school, getting a job, maybe not even going to school, but just having a job, having some sort of living or work or something that you're doing day to day to earn money. And then once it gets to a certain stage in life, then it's like, okay, I'm supposed to have a family of my own to procreate. And I think especially as women, sometimes that can be looked at like, okay, women have a biological clock. So during this stage or age in your life, you're done with school or you've been working for a little bit, your biological clock is ticking. So you should be having a family at this point. So I think that in general, that the society can kind of set it up to where it's marriage or dating is a natural next step or thing to do. So there can kind of be this feeling of being left out or this feeling of maybe shame if you're not at that point in a certain stage in life. So that was just one of the topics that were brought up. And I think that is definitely true. Another thing that was brought up is just being in a place. Sometimes maybe, again, these are just general thoughts about what people are saying about being single. This thought specifically is interesting, I think. So this is saying that sometimes people may not think about people who are maybe already in a relationship or marriage, may not think about how maybe sometimes someone who is single because they want to be at a certain place in life before they actually get into a relationship. So maybe they want to be at a certain place financially. They want to feel established financially. Maybe it's buying a house or having your own place. Sometimes people want to be in a certain place emotionally before getting into a relationship. And I've definitely heard that before, maybe more so on the side of women, of just feeling like, okay, there are things that I need to work on. There are things that I need to heal from. Men too as well, in general. Sometimes people want to feel that they are ready and capable to take on a relationship with someone else before, take on a relationship with someone else before, and heal before they are able to do that. So emotionally, financially, mentally, sometimes there's things that people want to work on, and it may not be viewed that way from the outside in to someone who is maybe in a relationship or married and just looking and thinking, okay, I wonder why this person is single. I don't know, maybe there's some things that they are working on. So those are just a couple thoughts. Another one is just how, and I thought this one was also good as well, self-esteem. This was something that was brought up just in a few of the thoughts of how that is really, really important to discuss as people who are single. And the hard truth is that some people are or feel embarrassed to be single. And I've definitely heard this a ton of times of just feeling like, okay, everyone or a lot of people or my friends are in a relationship and I'm not. And there can be some kind of embarrassment or shame that goes with that. But this thought was essentially saying that self-esteem is really, really important to have and to work on, not even just as a single person, as a person in general, because that embarrassment can maybe be stemming from low self-esteem, is what my thoughts are in response to this specific thought, is how that can essentially be stemming from not having enough self-esteem and confidence in yourself to know that, okay, maybe I'm single, maybe I haven't dated or been in a relationship in months or years, but that doesn't say anything about who I am. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. And just having that confidence in knowing that your identity is not found in your relationships or what other people think about you. So low self-esteem can kind of contribute to that feeling of embarrassment of being single. And then to complete this thought, this person was also saying that low self-esteem can also lead to having lower standards. So maybe there can be that feeling of being embarrassed to be single. So then that can lead to settling with someone that you may not actually really want to fully settle with, but you just feel like, okay, well, I just want to be in a relationship, so I'm going to jump into a relationship with this person. And that is a topic that just needs to be discussed, of how to work on self-esteem, not even just as a single person, but I think that's important in general, even in a relationship or marriage, of just being reminded that no one's identity should be found in what they're doing or who they're with or in their relationship. And something that I always remind myself is that my identity is found in Christ, in who God says that I am. And if I kind of start to lean towards, okay, my identity is found in what I do or what people think about me or just where I'm at in life, then those things are those things fluctuate a lot. There are seasons that change and things like that. But if I place my identity in who God says that I am, then that is never changing. I'm always loved. I'm always forgiven. I'm righteous through Christ because of what Jesus did for me on the cross, and just knowing that I can find peace and abundance and joy in just basking in who Christ says I am, because that is always, always, always good. It doesn't depend on anything that is circumstantial. It just depends on the finished work of Christ on the cross. And Jesus is perfect, lived a perfect life, and then took my place on the cross. And because of that, I am righteous forever, made righteous forever. So I think that's just really important, a reminder. Okay, this is another good one. Just sometimes how, and I've kind of alluded to this a little bit, of how sometimes singles would want to feel included in friendships and relationships with married friends or married people, in the sense of, I think it is important. I think sometimes that maybe, let's think about it in a church setting, it can be very, very easy to overlook people who are single or unmarried, especially if you are someone who is married or someone who is in a relationship or someone that always has their family around them. Sometimes it's very easy to overlook someone who is, let's just use church for an example, coming into church alone, coming into church sitting alone. They're not married, they're not in a relationship. And I think, just as a reminder, it's just really important to invite people in, to include people. And that's something that I've heard a ton of people say and talk about, how they would just feel a lot better of just knowing that they are and can still be included in outings and things and events and sitting together with people who are married or being invited to dinner at a couple's home. And I know that for me personally, when I first moved to Missouri for grad school, some of my very first friends, it was a married couple, and they had a young girl, a young child, maybe less than 2 years old at the time. But those were some of my first friends. They just invited me over for dinner. We sat at the same table at church for a small group meeting. They just started talking to me, asking me where I'm from, and then just invited me over to dinner. And just really, really, really cool people. Shout out to Kayla and Cam. But really cool people. And I think that was something that really had an impact on me, of just knowing that, okay, people care about me, and people notice that I'm sitting alone or coming in alone or moving from a new place, and they're actually wanting to reach out to me. I think it's one thing to notice that, because I think it can be very noticeable if someone's sitting alone or always sitting alone, or if you know that someone is single. It's very probably easier to notice, but it's not as easy to actually go up and reach out to them or ask them to sit with you or invite them over to dinner. So I think that can just be a reminder for couples that are married, or if you're together with family or friends or have people, to kind of make other people feel included. So that was just one of the thoughts of just married people allowing single people into their homes, or to sit with them or have conversations with them. Just reach out to them and let them know that you're thinking about them. Okay, so here is another thought about being single. I thought this one was good as well, so I'll just read it verbatim. I honestly think singleness is amazing. I never struggled with it, so it's hard for me to relate because I had so much free time, could say yes to more things, and was able to really get plugged into the local church and serve freely. I've talked to a lot of people who are Christians, and just talk about how singleness is the time to be devoted to God and to read scripture and to serve freely, to spend time with friends and family, and just really to travel, to kind of learn more about yourself. And I do think that when that is repeated over and over, I think for singles that can sometimes feel like cliche, like, okay, I've heard that before. I know that I have free time. I know this is the time to do the things that I want. And then from a Christian perspective, I know this is time to spend a lot of time with God and to be devoted to prayer and things like that. I think it can definitely sound like just something that people say just to make people who are single feel better. But I do really think that there is a lot of truth to that. There is so much truth to that. I think that even hearing from my friends who are single, of just saying that, yeah, I'm going to travel here, or I want to go on a mission trip here. I've had, I can think of a few friends right now who are single and just traveling throughout the country or outside the country to Asia or to different places within the US, Canada, all these things. And they're able to just devote their time to missions, to helping plant churches, to tell people about Jesus, or just to travel and spend time with family, spend time with friends, just take time off work and just go do that on their own. I love that. I love hearing things like that, because that is such a blessing and not really an opportunity or privilege that a lot of people have. I think I've even talked to people who are married. I can kind of think of a couple of people who are married and saying that, okay, I'm not saying that I'm unhappy married. Of course, I love being married, but there is also an aspect of maybe even missing that free time to kind of have to yourself, to kind of do your own thing. So I think that there is a good balance. It seems like the grass is always greener on the other side, but I think that there is blessing in both being single and then also in being married. But I think that essentially what this thought is saying, and just what I kind of think about it, is just being single can be underappreciated, and there is so much freedom and things to do and to work on and goals to set and things like that. So just really taking advantage and not thinking of it as just something that people say like, yeah, I know I have a lot of time, who cares? But really just thinking about it like, yeah, maybe if I was married or had a family or had kids right now, I would not be able to do certain things. So I think that is really a great way to think about it, and definitely agree with that for sure. All right, another thought is that sometimes, so this thought is essentially saying that sometimes people are single because they are just having trouble meeting someone. And I think that is a very, very true reality for a lot of people. I think that just in the context of, okay, for example, if someone is in school or in a setting in work where there is a lot of young people or a lot of people who are kind of in your age bracket, then it seems like, okay, there's more people I can kind of meet if I'm in school or if I'm working in person. But there are some situations that people can be in that can make it very, very difficult to meet someone. So let's say someone is single and they work remotely. Maybe they're not super involved in church or other extracurricular activities, or maybe they are involved in a church, but pretty much everyone around them is married. Maybe they are single at a certain age where the people around them in their age bracket just so happen to be in relationships or be married or even have children. So then it's kind of like, where do I meet someone? So a lot of people who are single do feel like, based on this thought, a lot of people do feel that getting on dating apps is kind of what they have to do if they really want to meet someone. And I can definitely see that perspective of just feeling like, where is this person going to come from if I don't go out and actually seek it out or actually try to interact with people who are also looking for someone? There's no way I'm going to find someone. So I definitely see this as well. So I think that that's something that maybe people don't think about. And this is something that I've also said that I like saying of, I think sometimes when people are single but want to be in relationships, they don't necessarily want to say that because they don't want to either appear that they are discontent, or they don't want to essentially open up that thought to other people and then kind of be disappointed when they're not meeting people. So they don't want to even really give the appearance that they're looking. Maybe they don't want to seem desperate. So I think sometimes people who are single, who want to be in relationships, are mute about it. But I think that is a desire that is okay to express. And that was another one of the thoughts that I was talking to my friend about. And she was just saying that it's okay to express that desire. And it's important to have friends or people that you feel safe and comfortable expressing that desire to, of, yeah, like, you know, I've been single for a long time and I really love to be in a relationship. I think that is so good to do and is so important because, one, you're just opening yourself up and being vulnerable and just sharing how you really feel instead of allowing that thought to continue to fester and fester and fester and kind of hide your true feelings about being single. And then two, I've definitely had friends who have been single and they're sharing like, yeah, I'm open to date. If you know anyone, let me know, and then get set up and then get married. So I think if you're single and then open about, yeah, I'm wanting to meet people, not in a desperate way, but just saying the truth of like, yeah, I'm ready. I think I'm in a good place where I want to settle down. I think it's really fair to open that up because you never know, to open that thought up to other people because you never know how that could be helpful. So that was another thing that people said of just, it can be hard to date. It can be hard to actually find someone that you're compatible with. I feel like maybe people don't think about that as much. I think it is a blessing when you do find someone that you like, you're compatible with, y'all have similar goals and visions and faith and just are aligned. Y'all are in the same season and then you're good to go. You spend life with one another and just growing and learning and accomplishing goals. I think that is a very, very huge blessing. Marriage is definitely a huge blessing, and not everyone gets to experience that, and not everyone will experience that. All right, I'll share a couple other thoughts. One thought was just saying how it's important to talk about how marriage is not or should not be the end goal, that there should be a sense of fulfillment and contentment in who you are, in where you are, and the things that you love, in knowing that you are loved and valued by people, and most importantly loved and valued by God, and just knowing that that should be the end goal, essentially, of being content in yourself, in and of yourself, and not looking for that contentment in someone else, of saying, well, when I get married, then I've reached whatever peak. I want to feel joy and satisfaction in this marriage. And I've heard this phrase actually probably more often than not, of just suffering in singleness. I've heard people kind of talk about how it can be very devastating, and it can really, really feel, make people feel really down, and just, just feel like using the word suffering is a good word to use. I've definitely seen people say that, and I do want to acknowledge that I get how it can feel that way, but I also think that it's just really important to look at the truth of it, that you as a person, if you're whole, if you're healthy, just knowing that there's so many opportunities to really do anything that you want to do. And this thought was just saying that marriage is not the end goal, that you're living your life and you're living in purpose now, whether or not that you're married, that you don't have to wait for that season and feel like, okay, now I've reached what I need to do or where I need to be in life. So that was just one thought, and just making the most of every opportunity, because there is a huge difference in a lifestyle of someone who is single and someone who is married. So just really taking advantage of both seasons. All right, so those are some of the thoughts, and there are some questions I thought were really good and also can be probably really difficult to answer, honestly. I'm just going to read a few of them. One question that someone would ask to someone who is single is, why do you think you've been single for so long? Another question is, when your friends are in relationships or are getting engaged or married, how does that really make you feel? And then the question, genuine question of, I got this from a friend, is singleness better than being married? So I want to just continue to share some of those thoughts. So I'll just kind of pause here and just say that I think this is just a really important topic, because everyone is either single, married, in a relationship, engaged, going through something or some sort of relationship, or just having that relationship with yourself, just you and God, or just you and yourself. And I think that it's really important to discuss just different dynamics and thoughts and just how people feel about this topic. I think that it's sometimes not talked about enough, or even when it's talked about, there is not real truths or questions that are coming out. Like, I really like some of those questions of, how do you really feel when all your friends are engaged or married? What is that true feeling? Do you really feel happy for them? Or do you feel jealous? Or do you feel bitter? Like, what are those real feelings? And I think it's really important to talk about and just really see where those thoughts are stemming from. So thank you all for listening to today's episode. I will continue this conversation in the next episode. You can follow the Instagram page. You can listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all the things. And you can also watch on YouTube. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and I'll see y'all next time.